the nutrition standards for everyone that I recommend. I recommend organically raised meats. This is regulated by USDA. If you are concerned that you don't understand what it means when something says organic, you can go to this site. Could you click on that, Barry?
But of course.
Thank you. And put in organic labeling. Okay, now right here you'll see understanding organic labeling. Will you click there, please? Okay, now drop down a bit. There you go. Now, some of you are familiar with this, some of you may not be. This is what you want to see on the food package that you're buying. You want to keep away from processed foods, things that are already pre-made, and you want to look for this sign. So if you buy flour, you want to see that on your flour. If you buy meat, you want to see that on the package of the meat. You won't find this in the refrigerated section usually, but it will say organic. And what that means with respect to beef is that the animal has been fed could be fed grain, and that grain is organically raised grain. I recommend that not only do you buy an organic beef or other meat, but that you also buy a grass-fed animal. Because grass-fed animals, that's their natural feed. That makes them produce conjugated linoleic acid. That's the kind of fat that you want. A grain-fed animal produces a different molecule of fat, and that's what is suspected as causing inflammation in the body, heart disease, Alzheimer's, degenerative diseases like MS. So that's what I recommend. Here you can see how the labeling goes.
Could you tell us where you shop for these foods?
Yes, I shop in Greenwise, which is a Publix store, but the whole store is Greenwise. One of the Greenwise flyers is up here on the table, so afterwards you might want to come up and look at it. It's the Publix that happens to be 5 minutes from my house, so that's where I shop. What I can't find at Greenwise, I can usually find at Whole Foods or some health food stores.
You can now find them at Costco. I just picked up a whole bunch of organic stuff at Costco. They're also at BJ's.
Can we kill this?
And Winn-Dixie, yes.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to hyperlink to these two other sites, but you all can do that if you want to go to those sites. They're very useful. It tells you, obviously, seafood regulations. They are not controlled under USDA, and they're very loose about the way they inspect and monitor fish. Beef, milk, chicken, and eggs are regulated under USDA and much more strictly controlled. Milk, you want to buy organic milk that has no bovine growth hormone. There's a lot of controversy now because under labeling, the commercial factory farms don't want to be required to list whether they use the genetically modified hormone that helps cows overproduce milk. When they do that, when they inject these cows, the cows overproduce milk. So the factory farms get a nice big profit because they're using the same animal to produce twice as much. However, this causes mastitis in the cow, and then the cow has to be given antibiotics. And then when you drink the milk, what do you think you're getting? You're getting hormone and antibiotics. And with respect to chickens, you want free-range birds, and eggs, you want free-range or cage-free. Also, I would stick to organic eggs as much as possible. With respect to fish, you're pretty much on your own. I know a lot of people like the farmed fish and they think that that's sustainable. I don't agree. When they farm fish, they're in close quarters. They're given type of antibiotics because they're in such close quarters that they actually sit in their own filth. This causes them to be diseased. They give them antibiotics. You eat the fish, you get the antibiotics. If you eat wild, of course, you know that you're going to be getting whatever's in the ocean, which is of course not clean either, but nothing's 100%. I prefer to eat wild caught and what they call certified, which means it's coming out of a managed fishery, an area where they control how much is taken from the ocean, so as to allow the fishery to maintain itself.
So like salmon would be a great thing to buy
Yes.
wild, correct?
Right, and usually what I buy is the salmon that comes out of the Northwest, the coho, the king, Alaskan. You can get it very inexpensively canned, believe it or not. If you go to where you'd buy your tuna fish, right next to the tuna fish you'll see tall cans of salmon, and it'll say wild salmon, and that's perfectly good. And it gives you all the same kind of nutrition that you want, because it might be too expensive to buy, you know, a fresh fillet. But you can make salmon croquets out of that. It's terrific for you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, organically raised fruits and vegetables is what you want, because otherwise these things are full of all kinds of chemicals. They use chemical fertilizers to boost the growth, and they also use a tremendous amount of pesticide. Now, if you're interested, see, you want non-genetically modified organism, right? So you want to learn about what it means to be a genetically modified organism or a non-genetically modified organism. You can go to this site. Barry, could you click there, please? Genetically modified organisms are organisms like the wheat crop or our corn crop. In the early 90s, they were doing experimental growing of genetically modified organisms. What they would do is they would splice animal genetics into plant genetics. Now, the reason they do that is so that for instance, there's a pest called the cornworm that eats the corn right on the stalk. So in order to boost the crop's productivity, they would have to apply a great deal of pesticide, and that would make it also dangerous for people to eat. And very costly, because you'd have to keep applying pesticide, and very often the pest would become immune to the pesticide. So what they decided is they used a special bacteria, Thuringiensis, to splice a toxic gene into the corn. That gene is toxic to the cornworm. It's not toxic to human beings, but what I believe is happening, and what a lot of researchers and scientists believe what's happening, is even though this gene is not toxic to us directly, the way it is to the cornworm, he just munches down on a kernel and croaks, you eat the corn, and your body doesn't recognize this corn as something occurring in nature. It reads it as something foreign. This alerts your immune system and causes inflammation in the body. And they think this may be at the base of obesity, heart disease, autoimmune disease. So I recommend you educate yourself to this. Okay, Barry, can you kill that? Go to the Dirty Dozen. Okay, thank you. Now, if you go back one slide, I don't know if you can, Barry, but it doesn't matter.
I can.
Okay. You can go to this site. This site will show you the Dirty Dozen, and it'll give you a lot of information on organics. I think it's very worthwhile. So the Dirty Dozen are a list of produce that are most highly pesticided. Okay, change over, please. There they are. So if you're going to eat these, I strongly recommend that you buy their organic counterparts. Okay? If you're going to eat, something other than this, then I wouldn't be as concerned. Grapefruit, bananas, I wouldn't be as concerned. But you're going to eat peaches, you want organic. You're going to eat celery, you want organic. Trust me.
Okay,
Next slide.
let's hang it a second.